is actually in a separate video, but this is 12.3. And in the first class, I had the students flip a coin 20 times and record the results in terms of heads or tails. And this is the number of heads that they got in 20 flips. And so I'm going to look at these results and compute the mean, the median, the mode for the number of heads that they got when they were tossing the coins. Sorry. Okay, and so you can do this with your calculator. I want to just review this several different ways that you can do it. So on your calculator, in order to input data, you're going to do stat, and then choice 1 is enter, and you're going to edit in choice 1. And then in L1, you'll want to do up, and then so that the L1 is highlighted, you'll hit the clear button. So notice that the list is now clear. When you do the down arrow, your list will be clear. So then we're going to enter 4 9s, 4 10s, 3 11s, and then a 12, and then 2 13s. Okay, and then you do stat over to calculate, and then choice 1 is one variable statistics. You'll hit enter, and then you have to tell it what list it was in, so second L1, and then you'll get your data. And so the mean is 10.66. This first number here is your mean. And we're going to learn some more about this screen today, so I'm going to put this right here. That's your mean, and then if you come down, you can do the down arrow to get your min and your median and your quartile 1, which we don't talk about much in this class, but those are the different values, and your max as well. Right, and so those were our results. I don't really like the way that put that there. Let me see if I can move it. Over here maybe. And then this one I want to move to, sorry. Here. Okay. So there's our information. So here, this number right here is your mean. And we're going to learn pretty soon that this number right here is S sub x is your standard deviation. We'll look at that in a second. And then we have, of course, the median and such. All right, so the mean was 10.67. The median is the middle number, which is 10. This is the mean, the median. The mode is the number that occurred most often, which we have 2 modes here. That's 9 and 10. Okay, and so I just want to remind you of a couple other places that you can look to get these calculations. This was that fun website, EasyCalc, and we can enter the data in here using commas to separate it. So we had 4 9s, 4 10s, 3 11s, a 12, and 3 13s. And then we just hit calculate, and we get the same answers. And notice they do give you this number called the standard deviation, which we're going to talk about in a minute. I think if you can also go to the mean, median, and mode calculator up there, and then you'll have to type those numbers in again, and it'll give you the data. Oops. Okay, and then we'll calculate. Okay, and it just give you the median of 10, and the mode is 9 and 10. Okay, so these are the mode. You could also do this in Excel. If we come into Excel, we can enter the data in 4 9s, 4 10s, and then just down here we can say equals the mean of the data and highlight the region, and it'll give us, oops, didn't like that. Oh, it likes the word average instead of mean, right? So if you calculate the average, you'll get the 10.67. And then if you do the mode, you can see the mode and the median. You can do equals and then median. And it'll give you the median. And you'll learn, you can also type in standard deviation. So you'll do equals and then standard deviation. And again, select your area of data that you want to find the standard deviation. You get that same number. So we're going to learn about that number in just a second. Okay, so back to the notes. The range is a statistical value that measures the difference between the highest and the lowest data value. So we just subtract the highest and the lowest data. And so for our data, we had 13 was the highest number of heads and 9 was the lowest. So we would do 13 minus 9, which is 4. That's our range. Now, here's this idea of standard deviation, which is a measure of deviation from the mean. And the way that you calculate it is if we were just to find on average how far each data value deviated from the mean, we would get some positive and some negative, but by the nature of the way mean is constructed, if you added them all up, you would get 0. And so we need to take away the fact that the deviations, which are the data item minus the mean, some will be positive and some will be negative. And the way we do that is we square each of the deviations. So we calculate the deviation and then we square it. Then we add up all of those, we call them the sum of the square deviations from the mean. So we add up those deviations, and finally, to find the average, well, we're going to divide, well, it's not really finally, we have 2 steps left. We'll divide by n minus 1, and I can't really tell you why we divide by n minus 1 instead of n. It's for a more advanced statistics class, but you just divide by this total number of items minus 1, and then in order to find the standard deviation, you have to take the square root of all of that. So you can see that this is very tedious and somewhat computationally hard to do, but we'll do it just one time in Excel looking at how to do that. So if I come into my computer and I have this mean is in cell A16. And so what I'll do is I'll come up here and I'm going to insert a row. And I'm going to call this first column the deviation. Hopefully I'm going to spell it right. And then the next one is going to be the square of the deviation. And so what I'll do is I'll take the data value, which is in A2. So I'm going to say equals. And then A2, and then I'm going to subtract. I always want to subtract the mean, which is in A17. So to make sure that that column is always fixed, I'm going to do $, and then A, and then $, and then 17. And then when I hit enter, it gives me the deviation. 9 minus 10.667 is negative. And if I now notice how I have the thinner plus sign. See, this is the big fat plus sign, and here's a thin plus sign. If I click on the corner there and drag down, it's going to do all of those deviations, and notice that it leaves the A17 fixed, but it did A4 minus A17. So it computed all of these deviations. Now, just for fun, if I add these up, I will see that I'm going to get a number very close to 0. I didn't get exactly 0 because of this rounding, but 8.88e to the negative 15 means move my decimal to the left 15 places. So there'll be 14 zeros in front of that 8. So that's very close to 0. And actually, if you do a right click and format this cell to round to, because if I say it's a number and I round it to 2 decimal places, it is going to give me 0. So the deviations you see when you add them up, you just get 0, so you couldn't find an average. So what we do then is we square the deviation. So I'm going to take this number that's in that cell, and I'm going to square it. So I just do hat and then 2, and then enter, and I'm going to do that for all of those. And then I'm going to find that sum. So actually, because this is a sum, I'm just going to pull it over. That sum. And then if I divide this sum by the total number of data values, which was there were 15 data values minus 1, and then take the square root, that's going to be the standard deviation. So the way you have to type that into your Excel is you do equals and then square root, and then you're going to do the calculation here, the sum of the squares, so that number divided by n minus 1, which in this case was, there were 14 data values, is that right? No, 15 data values, so we're going to divide by 14. And hopefully we'll get the same answer that we got. Yeah, and you can see that 1.496 is the same as this 1.496 right here. And you can also go in on the Easy Calc and come in here, if you come up to standard deviation, which is this choice, and enter your data values in, you'll get the same number as before. And I'm not going to redo it, but we did it a minute ago. We did get that same standard deviation. And if you come on to the calculator, you can see that the standard deviation was, it's this number, though, S sub x on that screen on your calculator. So if when you do stat and then calc and then 1 bar stats on your L1, the standard deviation is this S sub x, the 1.496 that you get. So it's S sub x on calculator, 1.496. So you can also do in Excel or on Easy Calc. Calculation. Easy calculation.com. So it was www. Okay? I spelled that wrong. All right, so let's do a couple more. We have some artists. We have male artists and female artists. And without calculating, it says which data set above has the greater mean number of platinum albums. Now, you should be able to tell that the average is going to be higher for the male artists because they have more, individually they have more than the females, than most of the females. So male artists have more individually than the females, so they will have a greater mean. Now it says find the mean number of platinum albums for each data set. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Easy Calc because I like that website. So I'm going to go to the computer and enter the data in for, and I'm actually in the standard deviation place. So 106, 89, 68, 63, and 59. If I calculate for the males, I'm going to get a mean of 57. So for the males, I got a mean of 57. Of 77. Now, the range, I can do that in a minute. Let's see. The standard deviation for the males, I'm going to go ahead and write down there. The standard deviation for the males, based on this calculation, is 19.91. Okay, so now let me do the next calculation for the females. So I have 62, 61, 60, 54, and 48. If I calculate that, I get a standard deviation of 5.91. And a mean for the females of 57. Okay. So back to the laptop now. Those are my means. My range for the males is 106 minus 59. Which is 47. And for the females, the range is 62 minus 48, which is 14. Now, just from looking at that range, you should be able to conclude that the standard deviation will be larger for the males because they have much more variation. You know, Garth Brooks had 106, but then Michael Jackson only had 59. So there's a much greater variation. So you expect the males will have a larger standard deviation because they have a greater range. And I used the EasyCalc website, and I went ahead and calculated the male standard deviation to be 19.91 and the female standard deviation to be 5.91. But just as a review, if you wanted to use your graphing calculator, you could put in, like, we'll just do the females to confirm that. So if I do stat and then choice 1 to edit, up 1 and then clear and then down. If I do 62, 61, 60, 54, and 48, and then I do stat, over to calc, choice 1 is already highlighted, so I'll select that by pressing enter, and then second L1, second on the 1 button to get L1, and I hit enter, and I do get the same standard deviation of 5.91. Okay, so you can do it with your calculator, you can do it on Excel, or you can do it on the EasyCalc website. So that gets you through section 12.3, and then the video for 12.4 is posted in a minute.